Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for coming here in large numbers. I think we are overwhelmed with all the support that we are getting for the Sunny Side Up series. Today on day 6, it's our 4th session on the Sunny Side Up. Today, I have with me Dr. Amjad Abdallah. He's the Director General and Multidisciplinary Team Leader at the Climate Change and Energy Department at the Ministry of Housing and Environment, the Government of Maldives, and has served in various capacities and various posts in the government of Maldives since 1996. Sir, let me invite you. So this is a short conversational Sunny Side Up series that we have, so I'll try to keep it engaging and lively. Maldives is one country which was my dream country to go to. I still haven't been there. Your archipelago of over 1,000 breathtaking islands scattered like pearls across the Indian Ocean. You know, for energy depend heavily on diesel. This reliance has shaped the cost of energy, the vulnerability of remote islands, the existential issues of climate change, and thus the urgency for cleaner solutions. Now, solar energy was, of course, a natural fit in your part of the world, both from a climate perspective, a geographical perspective, a developmental perspective. How has Maldives' solar energy evolved over the years, and what have been the defining moments that moved the country away from dependence? So your perspectives on that.
Karam, thank you very much. Indeed, it's an honor to be here with the neighboring countries. Of course, the ISA, we were one of the founders. I have to say that in Paris, I was honored to be as one of the founding members with your Prime Minister and, of course, with the colleagues way back in 2015. Did you say sunny side up? We say sunny side of life, so that's where I come from. So we are the sunny side of life. You can imagine the sunny side of life, what entails, what creates for us. Obviously, the bread and butter for us is the tourism, of course, but then there's nowhere that you can operate tourism without the source of energy. Of course, as like many others, we were heavily depending on fossil fuel generated energy. But honestly speaking, I think we spend more than 26% of our GDP on importing fossil fuel. And to us, each government felt, and it's a fact, I'm not making up, there's nowhere that we can sustain with the way that we have. Obviously, as a sovereign country, we have been providing subsidies for years. For any government, stopping subsidies is like, I cannot kind of imagine how an administration can survive. It's a suicidal attempt. So we've tried it, but then we have also created the opportunity to get from the green tax. This is where we started investing on renewables. We know that that is the path that we have to go. There's no other way. It's not only the fact of the matter is not that, it's not about moving to renewables. I don't think I have to explain. There are more than enough rationales why we need to go, because it's about, I have to say, it's not about energy security as well, because if you're energy security, of course there are other means, but it is also about independence. We are not a fossil fuel producing country. We have to rely on others. So the abundant sun is the obvious solution. So that's why we started investing on renewables. We have, I remember even as a child, because, of course, I grew up in the narrow lands in the capital. I don't know whether anyone has been in the Maldives. I mean, I grew up in the most densely populated island city in the planet, on the planet. But I still remember those days when I used to go to my native islands, where I could still use the phone booths. This is where I recall the first time that they started using the solar panels to charge the phone. That's as far as I remember. So this is how I got inspired. Obviously, it so happened to be that I was also trained, professionalized in this field. So as a person, not only as a country, but I think this is where how I went into the story of the renewables and the need to convince, of course, we've made a number of strides. We have the renewable energy policy, and you might have seen it. We have also submitted NDC 1, 2, 3, and the third NDC is the most ambitious, where we have moved from as low as 5 to 33%. So we have the policy of moving 33% generated from renewables by 2028, by the way. It's 3 years' time. I hope that will be the time when we will come to, I don't know whether it's Delhi or somewhere. I pray that that is going to be the moment that you'll see a major shift on turning towards renewables. We have also implemented a number of success stories in the renewable. The Aspire is one of the good examples. I also wanted to commend the work of ISA, how you have also helped the island countries. Often the issue is that, the island countries, it's not about they don't have the plans, they don't have the ambitions, but the limited capacity and who can help them to formulate and implement. Because often when you go to any accredited entities, they would say, oh, you know what, it's islands, what's the population, what's my balance sheet, return on investment? I'm not interested. So this is where I think ISA's, the platform makes it, scalable. Each individual countries within the small islands, we recognize that it's not going to make a scale. So that's why people use, of course, we've been used as a moral voice, but as it relates to implementation, I think we've been given a lip service. And that is what we, coming from the small islands, do not want to see. I'm sure you've heard it, the Leaders Summit, the COP21 presidency, the architect behind the Paris Agreement, Minister Fabius, he said it's 3 I's: implementation, innovation, and inclusivity. And that is what I was inspired again. We have moved, I think, from as low as 5% to now it's almost reaching to 33%. So we have been also working very closely with ISA, and of course, the platform that ISA has created for the SIDS is something that we are very much interested in working with. One piece of also perspective that I wanted also to say is energy is not only for mitigation in the context of islands. That's why I shared with Karan the other day the story of us. We are structurally vulnerable, but we don't say that we are only vulnerable, but we have created the resilience. I don't know, if anyone has been there, we've created out of sea opportunity for creating resilience. The settlement that we have created next to the airport was simply a shallow lagoon. And we have created the opportunities, we have created land, we have created investments That is more than $1 billion investment in the last 10, 15 years. So what we as IOS or SITS is that, the narrative that we have used in the past is that we're going to inundate. But we have shown the ability that we can be resilient and we have the means. It is about implementing the means to adapt and be resilient.
No, thank you. Thank you very much, Amjad. And I think the 2, 3 things that you mentioned which resonate very well with us is that our new vision at ISA now focuses on moving from ambition to action. And second is to actually focus on democratizing solar, both through knowledge, but also to see solar as the only source of energy generation that is a home product now. Right? I would encourage everyone to look around. We have all our action platforms all over the pavilion walls. But let me move to a question on technology variety, because sure, go ahead.
I was going to come, Karen. I didn't know that you had that question, but I forgot to mention, technology-wise, there are varieties of technology. Trust me, I've tried the wind, of course, ocean could perhaps be, we don't know, but the technology, the proven technology that we have used at the moment is solar. There's no other technology at the moment that is economically viable, that is environmentally sound, socially acceptable. At least in my country, we've tried the wind. As you may know that we are on the equator. We may have some spots. Honestly speaking, I've invested a lot of time. The feasibility, why it's still, I'm not saying that perhaps when the technology matures in the future, I don't know, but as of now, the only viable technology, to be honest, is the solar. So that's why we are working very closely with ISA. It's not that, yes, we are a neighbor, very close neighbor, one of the closest neighbor, but that's not a coincidence. I think that's why I think we have been very closely working with ISA, and of course, the whole notion of the framing of the ISA, International Solar Alliance, best fits to suit countries like us.
No, thank you very much. And, going back to the Leaders Summit on Laurent Fabius's 3 I's on implementation, innovation, and inclusivity. Many of us here who have not been, including me, who have not been to your beautiful country, it's one of the world's most geographically dispersed countries, with small populations spread across remote islands. Now, of course, diesel delivery, services delivery is expensive. Making decentralized solar solutions is extremely attractive. But on the inclusivity part, what were the biggest challenges you faced in delivering reliable renewable energy across this vast dispersed population?
Interesting again, we are geographically dispersed. We are an archipelagic country. You can imagine the logistical nightmare, especially in a very bad weather conditions. Honestly, not only the fuel supply, but even for food is something that is really a big challenge. You may have seen, if the bad weather continues for more than 2 weeks, because in our countries, you probably won't have more than a week of storage. So what do? There's nowhere that you can airlift. It's a huge cost. So that's why I'm not trying to justify the need for the solar. It is about the logistical challenge. It is the nature of the archipelagics, setting of the island state, and that is why we are very keen the inclusivity. I know that, let's be also honest, in the small communities, you're all linked. We all know each other. The people in the, the, the public companies, probably they are also well connected. So it's also very challenging for you to engage them in the renewables, because renewables is one of investments, right? Whereas, I don't want to go into details, whereas in the oil and gas, it's different, right? It's like, you're taking your stock every week or 2 weeks. So it was kind of challenging to make them inclusive. But I think, the green jobs was the turning point for them, because this is where, because otherwise, to acceptable socially is challenging, because each one has a job, right? Because you don't want to lose their job, because the one who is carrying from the harbor to the powerhouse, they all have a job, right? But if this has a limitation, so how do you include them? So we obviously created these technicians on solar fixing and all these things. So that made people aware that obviously they're not going to lose their jobs. We have created a lot of green jobs through that mechanism to include and socially acceptable to them.
No, thank you, Amjad. And on inclusivity, when jobs is a big indicator, one of the successes that I was particularly intrigued about from the Aspire project Maldives was that the cost of electricity fell from 21 cents 10 years ago to around 8.5, 9 cents across the implementation of the project. Now, one of the things we learned from that experience was that while the whole world puts PV, then plans for storage, and then looks at evacuation, the order should have been completely reversed. Now, when these kind of jobs, the cost and benefits of technology options are available, the pull factor for the private sector has to be evaluated as well. How did you look at balancing the costs, managing private sector risks with the long-term benefits of such technologies over these dispersed islands?
Well, again, you said the kilowatt hour, the cost of renewables, it has dramatically gone. So if you compare the unit cost with the renewables, I think it makes more sense and economically more viable with the renewables. I think now we're having it, if I'm not mistaken, 4 or 5 cents kilowatt hour. So which is definitely, I think if it's with the current market rate, I think it's 11 or 12 with the oil, I think diesel. So it's almost half. So there's all the means, but of course there's a huge subsidy. Of course I have to recognize that there's a subsidy. So that's why we're trying to eliminate subsidies so that we can invest more on the renewables.
And do you have a favorite solar technology?
We would definitely.
So actually, Amjad, that brings me to my question on the SIDS platform. On the wall in front of you, you will see this is completely dedicated to the SIDS platform. And the Maldives example was the basis for designing this entire initiative, where the lessons that we have from Maldives over 10 years, we wanted to replicate it to all our 37 SIDS member countries through a aggregated digital procurement platform to take these learnings and short circuit the time. You don't want to do it in every island in 10 years. You want to now do it in less than a year's time. Aggregate procurement, bring about scale, provide platform-wide guarantees, and do procurements in geographical lots to implement it. How do you think these platforms benefit? And number two, if you were to advise us on one piece of caution for running such platforms, what would it be?
For this powering seeds sustainability, I'm sure, there are a number of platforms that we can. One is the readiness with the financial institutes across the board, including the Green Climate Fund is something that I think we talked about it. There is a readiness program where I'm sure institutes like ISA can access, whereby you can also then demonstrate that this is something that you can help the islands across the globe.
And if you were to advise us on one feature that we should definitely look at through the SIDS platform, some things which is country contract specific or is on based on the ground realities that will add a lot of value, what from your example would you suggest?
One thing, Karan, you must always be cognizant of the fact that these are small countries, the number of people are small, the return on investment is smaller, unlike the bigger populations like India. So that is a key factor that you have to bear in mind, that this is not going to be a money-making machine. This is purely a break-even, a sustainability model that you can apply.
No, thank you very much. And this is an approach that we have when we work across our SIDS member countries, that solar is the most convenient and sustainable source of energy and electricity within natural ecosystems. So be it mountains, forests, small oceans, so it works very, very well. We are in the heart of the Amazon, and COP30 has been touted as the COP of implementation. SIDS have always been discussed as high vulnerable areas. While the COPs have focused this year, focusing especially on implementation, what would success from a SIDS implementation point of view be for you at COP30?
Karan, again, I think just taking the cue from the Leaders Summit, President Lula said, this is a cup of truth, the moment of truth. So what that to me is the cup of action and implementation. We have come very far from the convention of 30 years, of course Kyoto Protocol 20 years, 10 years of the Paris Agreement. How much, if you look at the gap of implementation, it's only widening. If we don't close the widening of the gap, we are going to be detrimental, because the overshooting for the 1.5 is going to be critical if we don't close the gap. So for us, and also President Lula said, this is going to be a COP of implementation and adaptation. So for the SIDS, it is about resilience and adaptation. People have to be resilient. Infrastructure has to be resilient. Food, energy, water has to be resilient.
Thank you, Amjad. And let me pause here and engage with the audience. If audiences have questions for Amjad, please go ahead. This is your opportunity.
No, Amjad, thank you. Thank you for that. We have been talking about these things. So one other hat that Amjad also has is the IPCC co-author, and I would like to bring in that last part of it, what he was kind of referring to is that the resilience and the role of energy. I think that is where a big, like you could actually lead by example. You means the SIDS and the Maldives. Can you just give some examples? I'm sure you have been through all those things. Yeah.
No, thank you. Indeed, that's why I think for us, energy is not about mitigation. Energy is about resilience. Energy is about independency and sustainability. To us, our emissions are negligible, so we don't literally emit. But then it's about, as I said, it's about resilience. The whole purpose for us from the energy sector is not about, it's insignificant the amount of emissions that we're going to be emitting. So for us, that is why we use being resilient.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So my question is, it's unfortunately I arrived a little bit late, but I want to know how you're going to make solar energy provision affordable, since the most commonly used energy source is the hydroelectric power, and not everybody is going to be able to afford that. How are you going to help, or are there some schemes? Are there some schemes to help the ordinary citizens to have the access to that?
Interesting question. I think if you look at the statistics of IEA and IRENA, the cost of renewables is cheaper than the cost of fossil fuel generated energy. So there's all the means. It's about bringing it closer to the last mile. That is what is lacking. I think one thing that I think I have to stress is that obviously the energy infrastructure that has built was mainly for fossil fuel based. We do generate a lot of renewables, but it is the energy infrastructure that we have built is something that we need to invest, because it does not cater. If you look at the grids in most, even a microgrid, we spend on renewables, but there is a lot of wastage because of the infrastructure. So the energy infrastructure has to be a transformational across not only islands, but even in the mega cities across the globe.
No, thank you. And this is a good plug for me that we have a SIDS event here at the ISA Pavilion at the 18th, and then the action agenda in the action rooms on the 19th, which is a ministerial. Amjad, I'm afraid, the time that we have. Amjad, thank you very much for all the work that you've been doing in the government, GCF and IPCC. So more power to your elbows. Ladies and gentlemen, Amjad Abdullah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.